Hey Dan, how you doing? Nice to meet you today.
Hey Mike, how you doing? It's nice to meet you. It's nice to meet you too.
Yeah, we were introduced by our mutual friend Randy Kirk.
Yeah, Randy's a great guy. He's got some amazing experience. I'm very fortunate to have him as part of my network.
Yeah. So before we get started with some of the questions about what you're doing with your business, can you just give us a little bit of background, like where you're raised, where you're from, college, bring us up to this point?
Cool. Yeah, I'd love to do that. So Daniel Lopez, my name. I was born in Queens, New York. I like telling people it's where Spider-Man's from and where 50 Cent got shot. He was shot and went to the same hospital I was born at, which is a nice little weird tidbit I throw in there. Very early on, my mom moved me to this small little city called Union City, New Jersey, and I pretty much grew up there. It was an amazing experience, something that is different from pretty much anywhere else in the world. It's kind of like an immigration hub in the United States where I grew up speaking Spanish in high school. So it was just a way different way of seeing the world. Played baseball through high school. That actually got me to college where I played baseball as well. I played baseball at Rutgers, Newark, and I graduated from there with a degree in criminal justice, which is kind of a weird transition. But I tell people the reason I did it was because it allowed me to practice baseball as much as possible. A lot easier than being a chem major or math major or any of that smart stuff. So after college, I spent a year trying to play professional baseball. I got cut a lot. Uh, so after that, it was one of those things where it was like, all right, we need to find an actual career here. Maybe baseball isn't it. And actually, funny, yesterday was opening day for the MLB, so it kind of ties in. It was a very sad day sometimes, but ultimately, it worked out at Rutgers. We ended up every spring we would start our season in California, and it was because in the season starts in February. February is absolutely freezing in New Jersey. Usually snow on the ground. So we came to California a couple of weeks to get away from it and start our season. And I love the area. You know, we played teams like Pomona and Laverne and those kind of teams here in the Inland Empire, as well as like Occidental and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
when it came time to deciding what I was going to do, I knew I wanted to leave the state. And for me, it was between Washington, D.C. and California. And it was almost like a coin flip. I ended up coming out to California, came to law school here, finished it, and spent some time working for different law firms and stuff like that. And now I'm here, and I'm the owner of my own law firm. Uh, Something I didn't think I'd say ever in my life, but here I am, and it's absolutely awesome. I love what I'm doing.
That's pretty cool. Well, you and I share similar interests in baseball.
Oh yeah.
I didn't play like you did, but I did work for the Double A affiliate of the Baltimore Orioles for about 12 years.
Oh, very nice. What do you do for them?
I worked in the front office, started at the very bottom as a telemarketing agent. I'd call people at their house and try to sell them baseball tickets while they're eating dinner. But 12 years later, I was the general manager and running the team responsible for, about a $5 million budget.
That is awesome. Have you gone to any like the winter meetings?
Yeah, I went to the winter meetings probably, I don't know, 5, 6 times.
It's an amazing experience. Before I became a lawyer, that's actually what I thought about doing. I was thinking about going to baseball ops, and that was kind of where I still love baseball, right? So I was thinking about like what I could do with it. So the last few years, I was going to winter meetings. So I went to one. I went to some pretty recently in San Diego and in Las Vegas, and it's a crazy and amazing experience. But hats off to those guys and hats off to you because it's not easy to make it to where you are. It takes a lot of work, a lot of determination because I know it's not always the most stable kind of job.
Well, minor league baseball it's all sales.
Yeah,
So, and you're probably experiencing that now as a lawyer starting your own business.
definitely, definitely a lot more sales than I ever thought I'd be doing ever.
So how did you it sounds like you said you started out in criminal justice and then you kind of moved over to more business law.
So yeah, so in undergrad, and I'm completely honest with this thing. I picked criminal justice because it was the subject that allowed me to practice baseball the most. So in undergrad, I wasn't thinking about my anything other than hey, I want to play baseball as long as possible. So when you do that, it kind of limits you as to what classes you're going to take. You're kind of just building your schedule the best way possible, and that's how I ended up with that major. But it wasn't until I went to law school that I really discovered what I wanted to do. And I was very fortunate. I had this amazing professor. Her name's Professor Loza. She also has her own law firm and does intellectual property. But it was through her class that I kind of figured out, like, wow, this is some really awesome stuff. This is something that I really want to do and help people with. And that came with the trademark side of it. And there was some other intellectual property classes that I really enjoyed. For instance, the law school I went to, they're the first law school to have this thing called video game law. And that's a fun way of just saying intellectual property, right? Like it was, it talked about topics that I always was curious about a kid. So, growing up, Michael Jordan wasn't on NBA Live, and everyone always, why isn't he in there, right? Barry Bonds wasn't in All-Star, he wasn't in All-Star Baseball and MVP of the show and all these other games. And for me, it was like, why isn't he here? He's the best player on the planet. How isn't he in this game? And that curiosity kind of led me to this class, and I loved it. I learned so much, and it was stuff that I related to. I actually, one of my in law school, you have to write a paper before you leave. And the paper I decided to write was on the licensing rights in sports video games. So I got to spend my semester that I had to write it in the semester. I got to spend it researching things like Madden and video games surrounding sports, and I just loved it. And it was a fun way to do what I wanted to do and still get the education part of it. So it was great.
So at that point, I mean, how many years did you spend working for other law firms?
So I started interning right when I was in law school. And, the first place I started, I was doing stuff like housing law back home, where rent control is one of the bigger issues out there because it is a metropolitan city. So, that's one of the big issues there. After that, I practiced in a few different law firms. One that I I was kind of the ringer. I only got hired there because I had a softball team, and one of my buddies knew the guy. So I said, "Yeah, come along." But they did more business law, so I got a good look at that and that world and what that required, how they treated their clients. The kind of behind the curtain of how that worked, and that was an internship. And then after law school, right after graduation, I went to personal injury law firm. And I did this, when you're out of law school, you're trying to find a job, right? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Bills are coming. You can no longer hang on a student loan. So I went to a personal injury law firm, and I was a litigator, which, not a lot of people, that just means I went to court, trials and stuff like that. And that was my role in that law firm. And I spent about a little bit over a year there. And I got a lot of the things I needed to learn there. It was a great experience. They're great people. I just couldn't do personal injury. It was kind of like a moral thing, right? Like you're hoping when clients come in, they have like the worst injury possible, because that's how your bottom line kind of goes up. And I just, just morally, I couldn't do it. But, they're great people. I was lucky enough to be on the plaintiff side. So, you meet nicer people on that side. But, ultimately, I always knew that my goal was to do business law. And it kind of just happened where, the opportunity came up, and I said, it's time to do it. And I did. And it's been an amazing, I'm so glad I made that decision.
So kind of walk me through the psychology of that. Like, what are you thinking? Like you left, it sounds like you left a paying job.
Yeah.
Was it like a, ramp one down, ramp the other up, or was it just cold, clean break and let me go off and do my own thing?
No. So before I did this, I had a conversation with my professor actually, and she had never hired an associate before, at least not at my level. So it was one of those things where she was kind of thinking like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. I might offer you a job, I might not. And when that happened, my world and my mind started racing. It was like, hey, this could be a really great opportunity. It allowed me to do things that I wanted to do. So, my whole mindset, my spirits were lifted. And unfortunately that the opportunity didn't come. Her law firm wasn't ready to do that. And it ended up being a great decision on her part. And after that happened, I was so high, and now I was feeling so low, and I'm going to work, and I was like, I don't really want to do this. You know what I mean? Like, I was so excited to try something else. And at that point I was like, you know what, I got to do it for myself. And, it created the opportunity of, I never ran a law firm before. I never ran a business before. So it kind of said, I got to start learning this stuff. And that's what I did. I started learning about business. I started learning about, the law firm business, how to run that, because it is a little bit different than running some other businesses. And I told my boss at the time that I was doing it. I'm very honest. I try to be as open as I can with people. So I let them know, hey, look, I'm thinking about doing this. I have this plan, and because it was a different area of law, he's like, yeah, go for it. Like, you have our support. You're not taking our clients away. Like it's all good. Do your thing. So for a long while there, I was kind of pulling double duty, where it was I'd work my 9 to 5 at the law firm, and then I'd work on this business before that and after that. So it was very tiring. It was very tiring, and eventually it got to a point where I was comfortable enough to say, hey, look, it's time to take this thing, the whole way. So I quit. And my boss knew it was coming too, and we talked about it. We still email each other, and it's all nice and stuff like that. But it pretty much just came from knowing I wanted to do more. And it was life changing, and like I said, I love it, and I feel so fortunate to have all those experiences that led me here.
So you had sort of a soft runway, it sounds like.
Definitely a soft runway. The first, I funded myself through my other job, so a lot of those first startup costs, which are some of the hardest costs for new business owners, I was able to use off my other job. And as an attorney, you make a decent living, right? Like it wasn't like it was too hard. So I was very lucky in that way. It was a soft runway to get to where I was going.
But when you did go hang out your own shingle, I guess, and start your own business, did you have any clients at that point?
Oh, not much. So it kind of all connects back to baseball. So one of the things I do in my spare time, which isn't a lot of spare time, but I just love doing it, is I'm on this podcast. I'm the host of a baseball podcast. We're called Diamond Talk. And it's part of a larger network of sports podcasts and sports group called SAW. And at first, a lot of my clients, or the majority of my clients, were just people in that network of sports people that had their own businesses, right? So someone was starting their own business. They needed an LLC. So like, hey, can you help me with this? Sure. I had another business that I had met the woman who owns this business through one of the business training things that I was doing, and she's like, hey, she needed a trademark, and we got on that. We said, yeah, let's do it, and that's how it kind of started, right? Just one person here, one person there. So it was rough at first. I didn't go into it having like a client list. A lot of the hustling and finding those people did happen after I quit the job.
Yeah, well, thankfully you had a lot of good relationships that
Yeah,
were able
I was
to.
very lucky. I was very lucky.
Yeah. Well, looking at your website, it looks like you and I share sort of, it sounds like the same idea that people should become entrepreneurs and build a business, build a brand. You want to talk about sort of where the idea came from?
Absolutely. So, I mentioned my professor and trademark law, and when I started trademark law and I first found out about it, I loved it because it was about entrepreneurs protecting what they had. It was about, hey, look, I created this amazing product. How can I make sure that it goes from A to, as high as it can go, right? And in trademark law, when you're learning about it, you hear about, you learn about companies like Coca-Cola. You learn about the companies like Nike. You learn about those big companies. But one of the cool parts is you also learn about companies you never hear about, and you don't understand the impact of what you're really seeing until you learn about some of those cases. So for instance, if you're a mom and pop shop and you have this great product, right? Especially now where we can sell anything online, and we're in the social media age where if someone goes to your restaurant and you have this amazing, item that is, just specific to your business, nowadays that's findable anywhere you go. You know what I mean? And why should other people profit off of your good work, off of your ingenuity, off of your blood, sweat, and tears that got you to where you're going? And that's what trademark law kind of protects, right? So, you mentioned why people should go into entrepreneurship. Well, people do that. Usually it's more than just about the money. You can work and make money. You can invest and make money. Usually it's about building something bigger than themselves. That's why I started my law firm. I don't see it as, this is something for me. No, I see this as eventually this is going to be bigger than who I am. So with brand protection and it's more than just trademark, right? You have to do the other stuff too, but specifically with trademark law, I saw it as a vehicle of going from a product that you're selling to, let's say, a circle of 50 people to potentially, globally. And if you don't set that up the right way, it can hurt you. And that's the way I learned trademark law. And trademark law is technically about consumers and making sure consumers don't get confused. But obviously the benefit of that is the business owner. And it's so important that business owners establish their brand, because at the end of the day, your brand is you.
So can you give me an example? Like, are we talking about someone who's developed like a software service or a product?
So with trademark law, it can be any product or service that's in interstate commerce. So if you're a software company and you have this piece of software that's going into computers, and manufacturers know this, and they hear the term, I don't want to say Microsoft because that's like way too big, but let's say a random name. Let's call it Detail Software, right? And your software is really good. It's something that people want to use. Well, you have to protect that, right? Because it's very easy, right? Especially with software, there's not a lot of there's no physical part to it. So if it's downloadable, it's something that you want to make sure that people are downloading it from you instead of a competitor, or instead of a counterfeiter, which is another part of trademark law. But to your larger question, it's any business that has a product or service that is being put in front of people. And by that I mean it can't be something that's internally, right? So if I'm a business and I have a special name for my employees, like let's say I work for Google and I call my employees Googleites, I can't trademark that because I'm not selling anything to the public, right? It's just something that's internally.
Interesting. I imagine that must get very tricky with digital media.
It is extremely tricky with digital media because it's one of those things where not everything is trademarkable. There are certain things that you can't trademark, and it's a long list of things, and especially in like you mentioned, digital media. Not everything works as a source. Sometimes people think that's a trademark, but really what they're trying to protect is their copyright or a patent, depending on what that is. So, there is more ways to protect it than just trademark. But when it comes to growing your business, the trademark, in my opinion, is the best tool and the tool that you should use the most.
Now, is trademark the same as intellectual property?
So intellectual property is like a bundle of sticks, right? And trademark is one stick in that bundle.
Gotcha. Okay, so you've got the business going now. What's your vision for it?
So this is gonna be. I have very lofty goals. I'm not gonna lie to you. I see a lot of businesses out there that they say they're legal services, but they're not. I don't. I'm not gonna. So let's say they rhyme with legal boom, right? A lot of people confuse that with actual legal service. And unfortunately, a lot of what I do in my practice is fixing the mistakes they make while using services like that. And it's costly. A lot of times it can ruin someone's entire business just because they don't know what they're doing. People don't understand that those are just kind of, they're just, what's it called? They're just taking what you put down and putting it in the correct form. There's no legal analysis. There's no, if you get yourself in trouble, they're like, oh, whatever, we just did what you told us, and that's a national brand though, right? That's something that's national. So I think one of my goals is, and this, like I said, this is very lofty goals because law firms typically don't go this route. I want my brand Esquire to be a national service where we're helping businesses in every state to as much as we can. Right now, we're a little bit limited in the services we can offer, right? We don't do things like employment law. We don't do things like mergers and acquisitions. But my goal is to eventually get attorneys in here that will cover that side of things. And I want this to be a resource for business owners, no matter what size you are, to say, hey, look, I have a problem in my business. I have this question in my business. Well, let's call My Brand Esquire. Let's contact My Brand Esquire and see how we have to figure this out. And that's the goal. The goal is to be the go-to person for business owners.
Gotcha. And still a more personalized approach.
Yeah. For me, it's more important to have good people than it is to just get the work done. One thing with me is we're value based. Everything we do is based on value. One of the different things that my law firm does compared to other business law firms is that we try to stick to the flat fee type of billing as much as we can. And what that means is if you come to us for a project, we want to tell you what you're going to spend right off the bat. And if it goes over, that's on us. That's our fault. We're not going to charge you more than that. Because the truth is, we typically know what something's going to be, right? If we file a trademark, it shouldn't be an hourly charge. We know how long that takes. So, one of our differentiators is we offer flat fee billing as much as we can. Obviously, there's some things that we can't do that, right? There's always a project that we can't calculate like that because usually there's other factors. But for the most part, everything we do is on a flat fee basis. And some of the other thing that we're taking away is we want our customers to be able to contact us. So a lot of people haven't worked with business law firms before, but typically they charge by the minute or by the email. So if you send them an email and they take like 10 minutes to read it, that's like, here's $200 bill. We read what you sent us. We know you need help, but you hired us, so pay us. We're eliminating that. We want to make sure that when people have questions, they can ask us, because that's what we're here for at the end of the day. We're here to help people.
Yeah, that's pretty annoying. It seems like you, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're sort of in between. Okay, over on this side, we have the legal boom, who is, computerized, automated legal services.
Mm.
And then maybe over on the other side, we have like these high-end law firms who, they're charging by the hour. As you said, they're charging by the minute. Sometimes it's, the clock is running, you don't even know it. You're kind of coming right in between and saying, look, we can help you control costs a little bit. We've done this work. We know what it's going to cost, and this is what it is. And we're going to be transparent about it.
Absolutely. Transparency is the biggest point. There's been times where my job isn't look, obviously I'm an entrepreneur. So being an entrepreneur means making money and generating funds and, making sure that your business is profitable. But I'm also a law firm, and I think that there should be a societal part of that says we're helping people. And as an entrepreneur, I know how annoying it is to not know how much I'm going to spend on something, right? Like if I can't put it as part of my marketing, my budgeting plan, then that annoys me because, I don't know how much I'm going to have to save up for it. I don't know how much is going to be part of it. So I think we offer a service to business owners where it's, look, this is what you're going to be getting. That way, you know what you're doing. So for instance, one of the things that we offer is packages for businesses. And in those packages, it offers, a certain amount of work, right? Whether you need, however many documents you need, but the point is, what that is. And if you want to roll that over to next month, go for it. You can budget for that instead of saying, oh man, I just got charged X amount of money by this law firm. I had no idea I was going to spend that much. I think that's frustrating. And the other thing is being on the clock. Nothing annoys me more than that term, because if people are calling a law firm, nobody wants to call a law firm, right? No, it's not like calling your friends. It's not like, hey, what good news do you have for me? Usually it's because you need something. And if you need something, like, yeah, there's a cost that comes with that, but that shouldn't be running a business and getting in trouble in your business isn't worth not asking the questions. So, because of that, if you have a question, we'd rather you ask us and let's figure that out than, do I really want to ask this question? I don't have $300 extra this month to call this lawyer to find out if I need this or not. So
Right.
That's some of the ways that we are different.
So business owners are your target. Have you carved out like a specific like niche, like at a certain size business or a certain type of industry?
So as far as carving out a niche, the niche has kind of carved us. I don't know if that makes sense. Like we started with a certain mindset of what we were looking for. And what I figured out was those people need so much more things than just what I initially thought they were coming in for, right? So initially this was a trademark firm where it was my focus, but with working with that, you know, I knew about business law, right? That's what I studied when I was in law school and stuff like that. And I had companies come to me and the rest of their company was kind of not where it needed to be. So, as a person who's an attorney and knew all this, I felt wrong not helping them in a way that they needed that kind of help. So, it kind of developed from that. For instance, one of a lot of the people we help are people who are starting their businesses. And that means they're coming for us for an LLC, they're coming for us for a trademark. But from having those conversations, what I figured out is a lot of those people don't really know what it all means for their business. So, education is a big part of it. So if you're a person thinking about opening a business, we'd love to help just because at the very least, we're pointing you in the right way. And one of the things that, we also do is we want to make sure you're starting off on the right foot. So we're not just going to file your paperwork and say, see you later. We offer services at a very effective rate that helps you with your business planning, right? It helps you with getting off the ground. It helps you with, even if it's just having someone to talk to. And, the way I see that, it's a very minimal investment into making sure that you're doing things the right way. Because I got that education. I paid for that education. And I want to pass that forward because if I didn't learn that, like who knows what I would have done wrong. I could have gotten in a lot of trouble. And then, other niche parts is just, the bigger the business is, the bigger their legal needs are, right? So, drafting contracts, drafting agreements, those are things that businesses, they should have examined. Regardless of what size you are, you should have that examined just because that's what's going to take you to court or not, more likely. So, we work with businesses of all sizes, but the larger the business, the less services we offer, essentially, right? We kind of focus more on certain things.
Yeah. Well, the cool thing about you is that I feel like you're kind of in there with us because you're a fellow entrepreneur who's also a lawyer. So you sort of get, like you talked about earlier, you get the idea of, okay, wow, it's a lot of work to actually start the business and to grow the business.
Absolutely. And it was funny when I was first looking into being a business lawyer. Obviously, I Google stuff. Everybody Googles stuff, right? Like, so I was Googling business lawyers and what people had to say, right? There's a whole bunch of websites on business lawyers, and one of the comments that somebody had made that really irked me was, you don't want a business lawyer that is too into business because they're no longer thinking about the law and they want to be an entrepreneur. And I thought that was ridiculous. That is the most ridiculous thing ever. I will say here, there's nothing special that you learn in law school that you don't apply to your own life, right? Like, yeah, we do get a specialized education, but we're not special people. We're all doing the same stuff. It all translates to all fields of life. So, to me, if you have an attorney that also has a business who is business minded, I tell people sometimes, hey, look, it's not worth it for you to do this. This is going to be a waste of money if you do this on your business. You may want this, but I'm telling you, and it's money out of my pocket, but I am telling you right now, this is a waste of money. Do not do this. And I get to say that just because I know what it's like from the business standpoint, right? And sometimes it does mean, hey, look, you shouldn't get this right now. This is better if you get this sometime down the road. And if you're just your standard lawyer, all it is work for you. All it is another case, or another document, and it shouldn't be like that. Everything should be about building for the future. Whenever I have a conversation with my clients, it's about their goals, right? Because if they have a different goal than what they came in for, then we're going to talk about how we can get them to that goal. And it's not always what they come in with, and that's kind of the bigger part. Like even with the LLC question, like not everyone needs an LLC, right? It's a great thing to have, and I would say about 90% of people who have a business need it, but that 10%, if your liability isn't very high and it's not going to help you in tax advantage wise, like why are you going to spend that money, right? Especially in California, where you have to spend $800 a year just to keep your LLC. So, those are kind of the ways I come at it. I do look at things from a business owner's perspective more than just a legal perspective.
Well, I can tell that you're passionate about entrepreneurialism.
Yeah, I think so. I didn't think I was. It wasn't something like I grew up saying I want to be an entrepreneur. I kind of just fell into it, and I ended up loving it. And people like yourself who are, in my opinion, in entrepreneurs' corners and are trying to make sure that they have that information. That's so important because there's a lot of bad information out there. So if you find a source that is really just trying to help you and not coming from a place of give me your money now, it's a lot different. So yeah, that's a fair statement.
Yeah. So right now, how long have you been on your own now?
So on my own, I just made a full year, essentially a few weeks ago. So it's fairly a new company, right? It's not like I'm not gonna lie to you, I haven't been doing this for a decade or anything, and I think you tell by my face that I'm not a gray-haired, experienced attorney like that. But yeah, so I've been on my own for about a year now. So actually, before COVID started.
So your business start kind of coincided when COVID hit.
Yeah, well, so I mentioned that my professor made the correct move by not hiring me. That's what I meant by that. After we had our conversation, about 2 months later was when COVID started, and that kind of that downtime, because working in personal injury, there was a lot of car accidents, and the one thing there wasn't during that time was car on the roads. So we had a lot more time to kind of do some more things, right? I wasn't stuck at the office longer than I had to be sometimes because we just didn't have as many people coming in. So it gave me the time and a little bit more of like the mind to be able to do that instead of just focusing on having to grind it out at work at that time.
Cool. Well, this question might be a little redundant, but what are you most excited about for the future?
That's a good question. So I'm actually excited about moving back to the East Coast. I'm originally from the East Coast. I'm living here in California. And I'm still gonna have a big presence in California. Like I'm not leaving and saying, see you later. I'm still gonna have a huge presence in California. But the whole reason I did this was for my mom, and my whole family. I'm a Dominican. I don't know how much you know about Dominicans, but we have huge families, and I'm sure you know from your time in minor league baseball. It's just we run deep, right? Like we have huge families. I have a billion cousins, and they all live back on the East Coast, and I'm getting to that point in my life where I'm starting to think about things a little bit more seriously as far as like family wise and eventually having kids. And I've had a girlfriend whose ring finger is itching, so I know I know that that's kind of the next step in that. So I'm excited about the future. It's gonna be a bi-coastal law practice where I'm also gonna have a office on the East Coast. So I'm really excited about that and how that's gonna flourish and work. So that's the thing I'm the most excited about coming up.
Well, cool. It sounds really exciting. You must be incredibly busy right now growing this and getting it going.
You know what? Yeah. Zoom's been a blessing and a curse. The blessing is that I can make more meetings. The curse is now that I have a lot more meetings. It's one of those things where I wake up at 4:30 in the morning. This is just like what I do, and I'm working through basically till I fall asleep. Later on that night sometimes, and it's all part of it, right? Like entrepreneurship isn't easy. Anyone who says it's easy probably isn't doing it right, or they might have some help that some other entrepreneurs might not have. But it's part of it. It's one of those things where I'm planting the seeds now, and planting the seeds takes a long time, and it takes a lot of hard work. So yeah, I am extremely busy.
Do you have any employees or contracted help right now?
So we contract up when we need it. And our next move is to hire an employee. I mentioned the move to the East Coast. Before I do that, I will be replacing myself with someone here in California. So
An attorney?
Yeah, from an attorney here in California. And we already have people in mind. We're already looking at options, stuff like that. So that's ready in the works. It's just about timing now. and making sure that's the right thing to do at the right time.
Cool. And this first person that you hire, will this be a 100% employee, or are you looking to do sort of an equity split?
So I've thought about it. It's probably going to be 100% employee right now. It's probably going to be 100% employee right now, just because I think every entrepreneur can kind of talk about this a little bit, but it's hard to give up equity. And it's not necessarily about the money aspect of it. It's about the control and about the vision. And it's hard to find someone who has the exact same vision as you do, right? Like, I see it all the time, right? Where there were two partners, start a business, and they were best friends. And then somewhere down the lines, things just fall apart, and now it's not the same vision, and someone is doing something different, and it's not in the best. It's not best for the business itself. So I want to avoid that as much as possible, just because I do see it every day, right? And there's a lot of horror stories there. So I'd want to keep it just by myself and hire a full-time employee. But I do have people who I would go into an equity role with, and it's a very short list of people. So it's something I've thought about. It might not be the first thing I do, but down the line, I think I will have more partners in the business.
I have a quick story about that. I have
Go for it.
a former client of mine. He was in the real estate business, and we were talking about, because I'd done some real estate stuff as well. We were talking about house flipping and taking on a partner, in that. And he said, "Mike, don't do it." He said, "I tell you what you do. Partner is just trouble. So every time you think about your partner, I want you to substitute the word trouble," which is kind of funny, because I was like, "Oh, well, what does my trouble think?" Well, I have to consult with my trouble before I can make that decision.
Absolutely, right. And and here's the thing: it doesn't even start that way, right? Like, everyone starts with good intentions. No one starts with, like, oh, I really want to make this guy's life hard. But that's, the thing is, everyone's different, and everyone's life transpires in a different way. So what's good for you now isn't going to be good for you 5 years from now. So yeah, that's a good. Your friend made a good analogy there, yeah, because that is trouble a lot of times. And just quick plug out there: if you are going to get a partner at any point in your business, make sure you guys have agreements in place. That is one of those things where I see it way too often, where there isn't that aspect of it, and it literally turns into having to close the business. It literally turns into having to piss off your clients, because there's going to be so much turnover that you think those people are going to be happy with you. No, you're changing your whole company, and now there's things that are involved with that. So if you ever do work with partners or anything like that, get an agreement in place. That's a no-brainer. That is something that it sounds like it should be rudimentary, but a lot of people don't do that. And if more people did that, maybe I wouldn't have a job. But more people, if you're gonna take one thing from this whole interview, is get those agreements in place.
Yeah, well, I think becoming an entrepreneur is pretty risky. And so maybe it feels better to go at it with somebody else, but then before you know it, you've got trouble.
Yeah. It is risky. There's no guarantees of success. And even if you do feel better doing it with somebody else, let me tell you a quick story, because this happens quite often too, is sometimes people partner with somebody, and they partner with somebody because they have a specific skill set. So, they think, okay, look, I have the idea, I have the fire, but I don't know how to do this. If I partner with this person, they can do this thing, and it's going to be awesome. And what happens sometimes is that person's role is really easy to do. It's something that you should have hired. And now you have a company that's 50-50, and you're doing all the work. You're making the rounds, and that person, like, you can't really blame that person. They did what they were supposed to, but they're still going to collect 50% of the profits because you made them their partner. And it's really important to have that conversation with somebody who can see that, instead of just saying, let's partner up, right? Like, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it, and being an entrepreneur is something you should do, but you shouldn't take it lightly, because there is long-term ramifications to it.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a lot of fun. I have to ask you before we go, do you have time to be a mentor? Is that something you consider right now?
Absolutely. And, it's all about giving back. And the way I see it is, I'm trying to change the way that people look at law firms. You know, I want people to want to talk to their lawyers. I want people to, not feel like they're gonna every time they talk to a lawyer, it's just money out of their pocket. So with mentorship, and maybe it's like starting a cult. No, I'm just completely joking. No, but with mentorship, I think that I love to be a mentor. Anytime that I do have law students ask me questions, I make sure that I answer them to the best of my ability because it is really important to kind of, if you feel you have something good going, you should keep that going, beyond yourself.
Awesome. Daniel, thanks a lot for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike. It was an awesome time being here. I did not know you're a minor league GM. If we would have met 5 years ago, I would have been in your phone telling me to give me a tryout.
All right. Take care.
You too, Mike.